welcome. My name is Tessa McLoughlin, and I am honored to be representing Nicola Wealth as chair of the Women's Lead Movement. I'm here on stage with Danielle Skip, who is Managing Director of Ontario for Nicola Wealth. And on behalf of both of us and the entire Women's Lead Steering Committee, as well as all of Nicola Wealth, we would like to welcome all of you to our first Women's Lead event in Vancouver. So there are over, I think, 500 of you here tonight. So it's an amazing turnout. So excited. So we're here to take inspiration from 4 amazing female leaders. But before we get started, I'd like to invite another local female leader up to the stage, and that is Jonah Sparrow. Jonah is a member of the Musqueam First Nation, and she has offered to be here tonight with us to do a land acknowledgement for us. Jonah, come on up.
Hello, everyone, and I would like to welcome you to the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. I'm really honored to be here tonight. What an energy. I'm looking at all the women and thinking about the fact that I grew up in a family of 10 and I have 5 sisters, and I get all this energy, and it's really exciting. Very powerful, powerful event, and I'm grateful to have been asked, actually at the last minute, by one of the Sparrow sisters. My sisters are and always have been leaders in our community, and I'm very proud of them and very proud to be called their sister. I'm the youngest, and my sister Wendy John was actually probably the second chief in Canada that was a woman. The first one that was woman was the late Gertrude Guerin in Musqueam, and I'm really, really proud of them. I look up to them and think about the fact that as women, they shouldered the responsibility of leadership in our community. And my sister Gail was also a chief as well, and today my little brother is the chief of Musqueam. And so we come from a long line of leadership, but I think that strength comes from the dignity of our mother. And as a powerful woman, we all know what a challenge it is to be a mother and how strong we feel about our kids. But what I want to say is that she became connected to the land in Musqueam when she married there. She understood the history, the story, and the difficulties that we were facing. And there's nothing more exciting today than to look in this room and realize that you care enough about us to ask us to be here. That it's important that you recognize that this country was once ours and still is ours. And everyone in this country has become wealthy off of our resources. And it's now time as Indigenous people to help you understand that we welcome everyone here. We've never been a culture to not welcome and to not love. And I remember those words from my grandfather. When the settlers came, we welcomed them. We taught them how to fish. We cared about who they were because we're friendly people. And today that still holds true. And I'm really proud to come from the family and the community that I do. And I'm very excited about our future and the importance of what we're doing today in the world of business and development, and what we're doing with our lands now as we acquire back and buy our lands back from Canada Lands Corporation at a discounted rate, so we can create sustainability with our own lands and properties. And so that's an interesting philosophy to teach to your people, but that's my responsibility. I work at Aquilini and in the development world, and I'm very proud to be there. They're very respectful of our people, and every developer that works with us has done so. And so I just want to welcome you to our land, welcome you to the space that we're in, and I'm really grateful to be here and excited to be a part of your energy. And I just wish you well, and I wish you a beautiful evening looking at all these powerful women that are going to present to you tonight. It's an honor to be here. So, Haïchka, thank you.
Well, thank you, Jonah. It is an absolute pleasure for us to enable, the lifting up of all women in our community, and we are very grateful that you were here tonight to do that for us. Thank you so much. So again, thank you for joining us tonight for our first Vancouver Women's Lead event. About a month ago, we had our inaugural event, which was actually in Toronto. And Danielle Skip hosted that event. It was spectacular. I don't think I can do it justice if I try to describe it, so I'm going to ask Danielle to please give us a few takeaways so you can get a flavor for what went on in Toronto.
All right, thank you, Tassan. We have some slides. I don't know where they've gone. Let's bring them up. There we go. So hello, everyone, and welcome. The lead event in Toronto on May 4th was an inspirational launch to what we're creating and building on tonight. We had 3 guest speakers who each arrived with their own unique story. As the night unfolded, a common theme emerged, which, my takeaway from it was authenticity. I hope everybody had their own word, but that was mine. And it was amazing to see that we hadn't actually scripted how the 3 of them were truly going to work together, but this theme emerged. So Jessica Holmes, a Canadian actress and comedian, kicked it off for us. Her song and dance routine had us laughing and totally entertained. And then her vulnerability and openness to share with us that she's had a struggle with depression, and her message about honesty with herself and with the people that love and support her was really powerful. She gave the stage to Joanna Griffiths, who is a founder of a Canadian company, Fast Trajectory, transforming the intimate apparel segment. And Joanna spoke to us for some time, and we had a lot of early stage career, university-aged women in the audience. And as we do tonight, thank you for coming. And feedback is she really had a message that resonated with them, and she spoke about failure as a key component of success. And she shared that with her team, they acknowledge missteps and they pop open failure champagne. Our last speaker was a man. We do love to share the room and the stage with the men in our lives. They're big champions for us. Jim Bakey is a performance coach, and he encouraged us to deconstruct a perfect day. What is your perfect day? What goes into that? And understand it and think about it for yourself, and then create more perfect days. It seems pretty simple. Create more perfect days in your life and in your career. And Jim has a podcast, and he calls it Be You, and the World Will Adjust. So tonight we are building upon what we've started, and very excited to hear the unique stories and to carry on the conversation with everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Danielle. It was an exceptional event, so inspiring, and I know tonight will be as well. So LEAD is an acronym for Leadership, Excellence, Achievement, and Diversity. And our vision is to foster a community of both men and women that's centered around lifting women up. We really want to drive connections. We want to knowledge share through storytelling. And we want to inspire female leaders of both today and tomorrow. And our aim is to show that success really comes when we champion one another. So Women's Lead is a movement that we started about a year ago at Nicola Wealth, and we started alongside a steering committee of both men and women across the country and the talented marketing and communications team. And we all rolled up our sleeves and got to work, and it was a real passion project. So Nicola Wealth employs 400 people, and of those, 50% are women. And that goes right up to the senior leadership level. So this movement is really about walking the talk, not only inside the company, but outside the company, in the community as well, and really reflecting that ethos. So we have put together an extensive cache of information on our website. We've got articles that have been written on various women, including the panelists. Selena Wu has been doing a podcast series, and we've also done, we've also done videos on women in the community just to help amplify their voices. And we will be doing more panel events, more events like the one we did in Toronto. We'll be doing them both in Toronto and Vancouver in the year ahead, so stay tuned. So tonight, we are going to introduce you to some amazing female leaders. On stage, we have 4 exceptional leaders in our community. We have Deanne Schweitzer, who is the co-founder of TURF. And I think we have a number of TURF devotees in the audience. I think a lot of people are at TURF every morning before they go to work. So it's a staple in Kitsilano. We'll hear from Deanne and her story as co-founder. We've also got Tessa McLoughlin, who is the founder of KWENCH in Victoria, BC. It is a co-working and culture club in Victoria, and she's taken Victoria by storm. It'll soon move to Vancouver as well, and she's had a meteoric rise over there, so it'll be fun to hear her discussion about being an entrepreneur in Victoria. We also have Chloe Angus, who is a fashion designer, award-winning fashion designer, but she is also co-developer of a wearable human exoskeleton. And she is doing that with a team of engineers at Human in Motion. So really exciting, progressive stuff in the robotic space. Last but not least, we have Krista Thompson, who is the CEO of Covenant House. She has been there for the last 16 years, and she and her team have absolutely transformed the landscape for at-risk youth in BC. They've done an amazing job. So we chose to feature these women because they have had a remarkable ability to create community around them and to help others thrive. So before we turn it over to them, I also want to acknowledge some of our partners who are here this evening. We have Can Fund 150 Women. I don't know if you saw them in the reception area and the activation, but they are an organization that supports our female athletes, particularly our female Olympians. So they have sent 5 female Olympians to be with us tonight: Amy, Cassandra, Lisa, Molly, and Sarah. So if you didn't get a chance to meet them before in the reception, hopefully you will after the panel event. Woo! There they are with their medals. Way to go, ladies. Okay. I'd also like to acknowledge Zoe Pollock. Zoe Pollock is a local artist, and I think a lot of you probably are aware of who she are. You have her artwork on your walls. It is her artwork that is the backdrop for our Women's Lead, this beautiful fuchsia and colorful artwork. We are so proud to have her artwork. We think is absolutely stunning. Also like to acknowledge CREW. CREW is a nonprofit organization in the commercial real estate, and they are geared towards lifting women into leadership roles in the commercial real estate industry, a historically very male-dominated industry, so really important work that they're doing. So if anyone in your network is a woman in commercial real estate, you'll definitely want to connect with CREW. Also, Soha Lavin and Jenny DeJong of Countdown Events, amazing female entrepreneurs in this city. They have helped execute tonight alongside our very talented internal event specialist, Aoife Longnan. If you are looking at hiring anyone to execute an event for you, definitely recommend these 2 female entrepreneurs at Countdown, Soha and Jenny. Lastly, Andrea Mestrovic, PR dynamo extraordinaire. She is here with her team from Very Polite Agency. I know, I love that name. They have introduced a new sipping sake, which is called Billions Trillions. Hopefully you had a chance to try it. If not, perhaps after the panel discussion at the reception. So now let's turn it over to our panel. And in order to do that, I am going to introduce our moderator, who is Fiona Forbes. She is a local celebrity. I think many of us are familiar with her over the years. She's an award-winning television host and producer. She's interviewed all the A-listers, the prime ministers, the presidents, the rock stars, you name it over the years, Fiona has probably interviewed them. She also has award-winning television shows. She has The Rush, Breakfast Television, and of course, The Fiona Forbes Show. So with that, please help me in welcoming our moderator, Fiona Forbes.
Thank you, Tessa, and thank you, Danielle. And wow, what a room. And I don't know if anybody else needs training wheels for their high heels. It's been a long 2 years. So that part of walking up the ramp was probably the most challenging part of my evening. But it really is an honor to be in this room with all of you and also to be sharing the stage with a powerful, empowering, and very feisty, accomplished panel. And we have a wonderful video to tell you a little bit more about them right now as they take the stage.
I just charge forward. I do forget I'm female sometimes. You just get the job done. So, by getting the job done, we started to see success. That's what really people are going to remember in the end, is that you created something that was incredible. We call it living an enormous life.
I've been with Human in Motion Robotics now for the past almost 5.5 years, helping to develop wearable robotic exoskeletons. And when the pandemic hit and everything was closed due to COVID, we had the Human in Motion team move here to this location, and I designed pants on one side and they designed pants with motors on the other. And yeah, literally we have the developing lab for the world's most advanced exoskeleton right upstairs.
In 2017, I found this building, but it did not look like this. While this was being built, I opened up a location on Fort Street in Victoria, and that was really sort of predominantly co-working. And then in 2019, 5 months before the pandemic, we moved into this beautiful 25,000 square foot space. Building this location was incredibly stressful. I just didn't have the assets that banks need. A lot of people wouldn't meet with me, but in the end I had 3 female investors that came in, and currently I'm fully female founded and funded, and that's a really unique situation to be in, and I'm really excited to try and stay that way. I really love the push, sort of momentum around getting behind female entrepreneurs and female investors. I think it's really important because when you have female investors in the mix, you're actually you're elevating different businesses.
For a lot of people, having a purpose while you're making a living brings such joy and excitement to your life that it's something not to be missed. And I think I was lucky in that because I was a highly at-risk kid, there's no question. But what the friends and family showed me was that there were that I was worthy of a different life than the one I was headed for. Myself and my younger sisters got out of there at a very young age, 15, 16 years old, and put ourselves through school, lived in people's basements. Really were determined to have a different kind of life. I think losing parents at a young age, having that kind of experience, it makes you stronger. Instead of becoming a drug addict, I left that behind and decided to knuckle down at school and get a degree. Simple as that. I wanted a better life for myself.
My future every day will not be in a wheelchair. My future every day is in my wearable robotic suit that I can get into in the morning, walk down my front stairs, get into my car, spend my day at work, and then go to a gala dinner and stand at a podium to do a speech. So that's my day in the future. To be standing again, eye level with my peers, hug my husband to my chest. I mean, I just can't tell you what that's like, but it sure feels good.
Now it is my absolute honor to officially welcome Deanne, Chloe, Tessa, and Krista. A big round of applause for these women. And I tell people you shouldn't have imposter syndrome, but right now I'm like, what am I doing here? Anywho, we're going to get to it right now. And we're going to talk about leadership first and foremost, because as everybody just saw from the videos and Tassan's introduction, all four of you are very accomplished leaders. And leadership takes all sorts of different strengths and skills. So maybe you could speak to how you developed your leadership style and what your leadership style is. And Krista, I'll turn to you first for this one.
Thanks so much, Fiona. Like a lot of CEOs, you know, we didn't go to CEO school. We didn't necessarily aspire to be a CEO. We happened to be good at what we did, and people, you know, kept promoting us, and we found ourselves as a senior executive, as I did. And really, I was following my heart in a job, and I was very passionate about what I was doing. And you know, when you're really passionate, success will follow. Just that's the way it works. So, and I'm 65. So when I was, you know, in my early stage of my career, there weren't actually a lot of women leaders around at that time. But I did work for a bunch of leaders, and I was able to kind of look at their styles and how they led, and I kind of picked and chose some of their attributes. What did I like? What I didn't like? And eventually, when I found myself in a CEO role, I realized that I had to be myself. The work itself is so demanding that trying to wear some kind of, you know, inauthentic persona to work, it would just simply be so exhausting, and you'd never get away with it, because, you know, people want to follow a leader who is authentically herself. And I'm one of those CEOs that, you know, I need a little like style icon. And growing up, I was a huge Star Trek fan. And you know, ultimately, after many, many frickin' years, they finally had a female captain. You know, Catherine Janeway, right? Like, woo! And she was just, you know, so adopting her very, you know, kind of cool, deep raspy voice. She was very calm under fire.
Do it, do it.
Right? Exactly. So, you know, you find inspiration in the strangest of places, but I'm very grateful to Catherine Janeway for her inspiration.
And it's no joke, but when we had our first meeting on Zoom with all of us, Krista had Captain Janeway's background on her Zoom. She's not joking here, but that's so interesting. I do the same thing really with television. How about the rest of you? Deanne, how would you define, I mean, you don't have to have a Star Trek character, don't panic. But how do you define your leadership style with what you do with Turf?
Oh, good question. I did spend 15 years at Lululemon, pre-Turf, and after leaving Lululemon, Turf was my next expression of living a healthy lifestyle. And I wanted to say, to Krista's story, a friend of mine, she knows who she is in the audience, but she sent us an article once on having an alter ego and actually stepping into that to elevate your power to some extent, and that sounds like you naturally fell into that advice. My advice, or my leadership style is, I would say, lead by example, to put it into a summary. And I would say a great leader for myself is on a constant journey of self-development. And whatever that is, whatever that takes, whatever I'm up to, whether or not it's just leaning on my peer group and surrounding myself with people that are going to give me the honest feedback as to where I'm at. And I find that by being in that constant journey of development, people want to come along with me.
That's
So-
interesting because some people, when they are in a leadership role, may think that they're past, developing themselves, that they've hit the top of the heap. But I love
Yeah.
what you said there because I think that's true for any industry.
Yeah, great.
And Chloe, how about you? You have a couple of hats with your clothing and her exoskeleton. I mean, how cool is that? You've got robotics and clothing. What is your leadership style in your industries?
Oh, well, certainly for both of them. When I started in fashion in Vancouver, which was never a fashion hub, this was pre-Lululemon. And that's our biggest fashion icon at this point. But I wanted to do, in fashion, I wanted to do sustainable fashion, and I wanted to do fashion that fit real women. And I wanted to show women of all different diversities, sizes, ages. And this wasn't done in fashion when I was starting. So I just decided that that needed to be done. And it was kind of that landing myself in a leadership role because that leadership was needing to be there. And that's certainly where I'm at with the exoskeleton project, for sure. When I ended up with my spinal cord injury and over I was told I would never walk again, I just found that unacceptable, and that there needed to be someone to lead the change that we absolutely have. We have the technology. I could see it all around me. Self-driving cars and drones to deliver our groceries, but the wheelchair had not been changed in 250 years. So we have the technology. And all we have to do is apply it. But I wasn't really seeing that being done. So, well, strap the horse to the cart and put me in the leadership role.
DIY, baby.
That's it.
And Tessa, how about you with KWENCH? What is your leadership style?
I was kind of hoping you wouldn't ask me this one. I don't think I'm actually a very good leader. And I don't. I think, well, I guess what I'm saying is I'm really learning how to be a leader with responsibilities. And I love engaging people and exciting people and doing things, but I'm really learning how my team, how I can't make them all my friends. Has everyone else had that? It's so hard because they're all so awesome. So I'm really learning that part of leadership, I think, in terms of, and this comes back to one of the things we were talking about with culture. I think that that's where I lead best, is I really aim to create a really safe space for women, a safe space for men, a safe space for the queer community, the BIPOC community, the Indigenous community, and that is about leadership. So that's about, so maybe I do it a bit.
I haven't known you for a long time, but I'm going to say that you're a self-deprecating leader who's probably really fun to work with.
No, I am really fun to work with. I am. But I think that I have to remember when you lead, you can't always come from "you're my best friend" sort of motto. And but it's about leading with my favorite word, and I know it's a catchword right now, and a catch sort of state of being is curiosity, but I think everything I do, I always come from a place of curiosity, because the more curious I am, the less judgmental I am, the more open I am to other ideas, and the more accepting I can be to learn new things. So that's how I lead, with curiosity. When anyone comes into our club, if they're being a pain in the butt, it's always like, I wonder what's going on for them. Okay,
Okay, the next question is a big one, and I'm sure you've all got answers, but as female business leaders, are there challenges that you face that are gender specific? Tessa, I'm going to start with you because you had the biggest eye roll that I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely. Come on. I mean, that's life as it is right now. I mean,
get me back to the question, because I'm going to totally diverge from what you're...
What challenges do you...
What challenges?
Yeah.
There's so many challenges, and there's also things that make it to our advantage in a way too. Like I was talking today about my favorite line from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Who might seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding? And remember when she's like, but Mum, I'm like, how Dad, Papa will never let us do that. He's the head of the family. And she's like, oh, darling, he may be the head of the family, but we are the neck, and we turn that neck whichever way we want it to go. And so I try to use that to my advantage. But I think the biggest problem for me was I needed financing. To build the space that I built, I needed around $1.5 million, and that was with me arranging a deal with the landlord where he did all the tenant improvements. Otherwise, it would have been around $4 to $5 million. I'm a single mum. I had no assets because I'd been through a divorce. And you go into the bank, and the first thing you fill out the form, and it says, what's your name and how much do you earn? What's your spouse's name? How much do they earn? And so it got to the point where I was just like, I don't want to freaking fill these out because I'm already being disadvantaged straight away. So it was an incredibly frustrating point. And then the government came out with these, $1 billion to female founders. We've got a fund. And I was like, wicked! So it was being distributed by BDC. So I called up the guy who's already dealt with me at BDC. And I'm like, how's it going, Sean? I'm really excited. I want to apply for this loan. And he's like, oh, well, you already have. And I'm like, no, this is the one for women. And he's like, well, it's the same application. I might have lost my shit. I was very calm, but I was just like, that is ridiculous. If you've actually realized that women are only getting 2% of the funding out there, then you have to look at why. Is it because you're asking women who get paid less than men to have the same amount of assets as men? Is it because you're asking women who have often been the main caregivers for years to have the same assets or the same income? So that's, for me, where I found the major disparity, and that's where I hope that, I was saying to these ladies, I hope that in 20 years we're not at an event like this, because it's just like, oh, you're a founder? Oh, you're an investor? That's great. Yeah, oh, great. It's not, oh, we're not gendering who you are or what you are.
Even playing field.
Yeah.
Chloe, the next one, I'm going to ask you the same question. Because in the world of robotics, I would imagine that it is extremely male-dominated just because of the nature of the industry. What challenges do you face that are gender-specific in that arm of your industry?
Extremely challenging, I have to say. I went from working with an all-female fashion team to working with an all-male robotics team. Wow, what an eye-opener. But honestly, I think the eye-opener was for them more than for me. I'm pretty tough. I have 3 brothers, and they never got the upper hand on me. So I spend a lot of my time educating these fine young gentlemen on equality and listening to women and how, my experience, I may not have an engineering degree, but I am an expert in my field. So when I'm challenged by some gentleman that I might not be up to par around that table, I remind him that he has not one day of experience in my field, and that it's actually my field that we're building the product for. So there.
And Krista, how about you? Because I'm sure the opinion of everybody in the room, there are not enough female CEOs in the world. Gender specifically, what have your challenges been on your road as a CEO?
I had lunch with a friend of mine actually not that long ago, and he's a gentleman of a certain age, a little older than I am, and we're of that generation. We were talking about female leadership in the organization that he owns and runs, which is I will not say the name of it. And you'll know why in a minute. And I said, so what, are there opportunities for women? How do you see women, in your organization? He said, love hiring women. They'll work twice as hard for half the money. And he said this with a absolutely straight face. He meant it. And it's probably, in my experience, not that far from the truth. I recently did a compensation study for my position in my organization. We're 240 employees. We're $25 million a year, and we're a significant enterprise. And my salary is considerably less today, after 16 years, than my incumbent will be when he takes the job in the coming year. So, and when I started at Covenant House, I mean, bless their hearts, there were lots of gentlemen around the table, many of whom, could be my grandfather, and they really saw me as their granddaughter. I mean, it was sort of, let's not get too emotional about things, Krista. Yes, we know you want to, negotiate your compensation. We know you want this. We know you're going to want to do that. But just, be calm. Don't bring too much emotion to this, and I'm sure that, we will help you get this done. It was sort of from that to today where, I look around my leadership table at Covenant House, more than half of the people at the table are women. I think that smart male executives are hiring women to their teams because they realize they need diversity of thought in order to be successful in our marketplaces. Women are a huge, customer base. We're a huge potential source of business in every way, and smart organizations are bringing more and more women around the executive table. And while they're doing that, there'll be so many more candidates who will be in a position to apply for and be successful in CEO roles. So I think the future is actually very bright. And events like this and organizations, frankly, like Nicola, who have the foresight to host these kinds of things, are making that happen.
I definitely appreciate that. Oh, you brought a bit too much emotion to the team. There's, you're getting a little emotional here. You might want to calm down a little bit. I'm looking at them like, you're seeing me here, right? You're asking me to not be emotional about something like never walking again and what it would mean to not build the exoskeletons that we're building today to change things for people. Like, you can't separate emotion from that. And I think that it's really a big plus that women do have emotion in what they do. It makes us work twice as hard for half as much.
And Deanne, on that line, do you think gender has played into how you have felt as a leader throughout your career? Lululemon was a big part of your life, now Turf as an entrepreneur, or how people perceive you as a leader? Yeah. How has your gender played into all of that?
It's a really good question. I didn't hit as many barriers as my friends up here. We were a predominantly female-led company. Of course, the founder at Lululemon was male, and a lot of the executive team was female. Devil's advocate, there was times, I'm sure, when a female probably could have had the CEO role at Lululemon, and a female did hold the CEO role for a period of time, and has not since. So, and I bet you there's been darn good candidates to have that position. I know a few. I think starting Turf, of course, my sister and I came from Lululemon. We were relentless, and I said it in my video. I forgot I was female sometimes. I was just, pounding the pavement on a mission to create this concept and space that we were up to create. And I wonder, even just signing the lease in Kitsilano, if that was harder than it needed to be. So the amount of information that I had to provide surprised me. And I don't know, because I don't know if I was a male, if that would have been different amount of information. But listening to everybody, I'm going through my head. Because it was always on my mind, going, this is a lot. I had to really prove myself. To some extent, lie. Does that make sense? Like, I had to lie. I was just like, don't I just have to? Yeah. Anyways, it was. I do always tell a story too. When I was at Lululemon, I was I was asked if I'd like to go take this executive program at Stanford for 6-7 weeks. I took the program. I was one of 13 women in this program. There was 140 participants. So we were a minority for sure. And the women all wanted to go often and have lunch together. And I often chose not to. And I'm like, I'm hanging out with all these guys. I'm not going to segregate us out. I want us to, what's the right word? Infiltrate and immerse ourselves.
Like we're all spies.
Yeah. Well, I was just like, why would we? I mean, this event is incredible. I mean, Nicola Wealth, it's unbelievable. And I want to show our power and leadership like amongst the population and not necessarily always stand outside of the population. So
I get what you're saying.
yeah.
Sure. Now, Tessa, I'm going to turn to you for this one because KWENCH is a culture club. How do you create culture, and why is culture so important? That's another thing that's a buzzword right now, but I think it's amazing that companies are recognizing that having a culture makes people happier. But maybe you can speak to the culture of your company and how you create that.
Yeah, so I think, as I said before, for me, it's about inclusion and creating a safe space for people. I think culture is important. It's a huge percentage. I think it's over 70% of companies fail due to their culture. I was just talking to someone out there, I think, and they said that a company had failed because of the culture, and it happens all the time. And you know, when you're working on your business, you don't always have the time to actually focus on the culture. So you hire people to do that for you, like Tessa and I were talking to Judy today, was it? Joy, who does the HR. So that's part of your culture. But I mean, I think the inclusivity, the curiosity, making sure people and making sure your space is as diverse as you can, which in Victoria is really hard. We're really white over there. But it is, it's hard. But it's like, how can you do it? What do you need to do? And is that about how do you lift people up? Which, you know, it's like this event. It's not saying, God, men get it all and we get nothing. That's not what it's about. It's like, how can we bring women to the table? How can we bring diverse groups to the table? And sometimes while you're doing that, it seems a little uneven. Because it seems like, oh, the women are getting all the money, or, you know, your First Nations people are getting free everything, or whatever, and it's just like, no. Like, first of all, this has to happen to level the playing field. I think one of my favorite sayings is like, it's not my favorite saying, but it's a really good saying, equality to the privileged looks like oppression. And so I think that's the culture that I try to have is like, okay, let's raise everyone up. How do we do that? Yeah.
And how about for you, Krista, with Covenant House? Of course, Covenant House being what it is, helping young people, youth who need your help. How do you create a culture for somewhere like Covenant House to make it work so well?
I think where we start is why do we need the culture, and how is the culture actually going to support the mission of the organization? Mission is not, you know, so, and if your culture is a part of the strategy to get the job done. So for me, I mean, it was relatively simple. You know, we have a very, very clear mission. and that is to lift young people so that they can become healthy, independent adults. That is the only reason why we exist. So every meeting we have, every dollar we spend, every budget we write, every ad we place, every event we do is about one thing, and that's great outcomes for kids, period. And as a leader, we set tone at the top, and that's part of why they pay us, frankly, what they do, because CEOs are responsible, I think, for actually creating culture and modeling culture. At Covenant House, we talk a lot about love and respect, and that comes straight from my heart. And I do a lot of this at work. I actually do. I was at a meeting today, and I choked up. I could not continue. We're all.
But that speaks to the passion you have for what you do.
And authenticity. I don't mind. I actually don't mind. And I think when you are, people feel safe to be able to express themselves as well. So focus and it must support mission, whatever it is.
Could I just add, so I love what you said. There was a word you said there that that is so key for culture, and that's setting the tone. And like one of my favorite things is like on all of our Google reviews on KWENCH, almost all of them mention how the place makes them feel. It doesn't say anything else about the place. It's just like, I feel like I belong. And that's because of the tone that we set. And so you're right. It comes down to, what do we find acceptable? What won't we accept? What will we allow? And yeah, tone. I love it.
Absolutely. And how about on the flip side? Because, keeping culture positive is what you're trying to do, but when things are maybe difficult, when they're stressful, I don't know, when the world throws a pandemic at you and things aren't that great, how do you keep the energy up? How do you keep your people, your team happy, engaged, so that they want to stay and be with you? Deanne, let's speak to Turf about that.
Well, interesting you say that, because I was going to say, when the going gets tough, I hope you have a culture. So, and because you could say it is actually what moves the strategy, and I think it is the glue that holds the whole piece together. So, so speaking to the pandemic, that was fun. We pivoted, and then we would operationalize, and then we pivoted again, and then we operationalize. I think
everybody in the room is nodding. Pivot is the word for the pandemic. What are we doing today?
Pivot.
Not the same as yesterday.
Pivoting again. We were a grocery store at one point. Sorry, if you know Turf, it's like bistro, a workout studio, and apparel. And at one point, I sat there, I'm like, we've got all this food. It's in our fridges, it's in our shelves. How do we get it to the people? Because the people aren't allowed in Turf right now. So we started bringing the food and the wine as our general to the people. So that was, it was survival. It was survival for sure. What I love about the pandemic is we got super clear on what Turf was. And because we attempted digital classes, which we still have and are wonderful, and they augment our service, but we got super clear that we're a place for people to come to. So they don't want to experience us 100% digitally or on e-commerce on the internet. But because through the pandemic, we could have discovered that, wow, we just have to be, this whole experience could be online. You could do the classes online. You could order the food and the apparel online. But what we found was that's not who we are.
People want community.
They want community, and of course, more than ever. So
more than ever. Absolutely. Now let's talk about mentors. Have any of you had a mentor who has inspired you, or perhaps I'm seeing a few grins. Come on, Krista, tell me what you're thinking. Let's just go to Krista right now.
I was wondering if you were going to ask this question, and I'm smiling because my very dear friend and unfortunately late friend, Virginia Green, It's just constant, basically. Anyway, she was an incredible woman. If anybody in here ever knew Virginia, she was right? She was an absolute powerhouse of a woman. And I met her, I was so fortunate to meet her relatively early in my career. And she just, I just followed her around like a little duckling, just trying to suck up whatever the hell she was doing, I wanted to do it because she had a way of walking into a room and instantly being part of it and having, she gained so much energy from the room. She did so many things, but she had a couple of rules. And one of them was no bad pictures, ever.
That's a good rule. I'm not going to disagree with that.
Yeah, and I absolutely try to live by that one. She said, Krista, you say yes to everything. Always. Which, from a single working mother, I didn't want to say yes to everything. And my God, I was busy enough. She said, say yes to everything. You can always change your mind. But just always, it's never no. Which I thought was great as well. And, she led with grace and with humor and great cocktails and canapes at her parties.
Cocktails and canapes, that's my
Absolutely.
kind of mentor. Chloe, how about you? Any mentors in your career on either side of it, whether it be fashion or robotics?
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna try and get through this one without pulling a Krista, but I'm not sure if it's gonna work. So, yes, definitely, and that mentor is my dad. I lost him last year, and we will be celebrating his life in a week from now. And when I was thinking about this question, I've had great interactions with many different business people, both men and women, who've given me great advice and things. But what it really starts with, and as Krista said, I followed my dad around like a duckling, and he was so powerful and so charismatic in a room. He would be the life of the party, and he always commanded the room when he spoke, and everyone was so interested in what he had to say. And I remember when we were kids, and it seemed a bit harsh at the time, but if we weren't doing a good enough job at something, he would take over and he would say, here, watch how I'm gonna do it. Because if you're not gonna do the job right, don't do it at all. And I think that above all else, has stuck with me to continue to do very difficult jobs and hopefully do them right.
Well, I don't know. She's making exoskeletons so people can walk. I think your dad would be pretty proud right now, Chloe.
Yeah, Daddy, look at me now.
Right? Okay, we'll shift gears a little bit, and I'll turn to you, Deanne, for this one. What advice would you give, because I'm sure we have a lot of up-and-coming entrepreneurs in the room. What advice would you give to an up-and-coming female entrepreneur?
Okay, great. I do have some notes on this one.
She's like, I know this one.
Well, first of all, it's rewarding. It's really rewarding. And second of all, it is a roller coaster. So the ups and downs and the highs and the lows, holy doodle, I had no idea. And I say I have no idea because I worked blood, sweat, and tears at Lululemon. I was there, like I said, I was there for 15 years, helping build that brand. And I assumed going into turf, it was just going to be the same blood, sweat, and tears. And it was different. And again, I said it in the video, but it was like having a baby. So when the going got tough, there was no walking away. You were up. I was up at night. I was, feeding or whatever it was you do to a baby business, but rocket. Yeah, it was a very unique experience. So absolutely rewarding, and really know what you're getting into.
And there's no 9 to 5 being an entrepreneur.
There's
It is
no 9 to 5.
24/7, 365, and
Yep.
I'm sure every entrepreneur in the room can agree with that. Tessa, how about you? What advice do you have for up and coming entrepreneurs?
I don't have notes. I just say do it. Just do it. And like, maybe, I don't know, did Nike take that one?
Yeah, I think they took that first, but it's okay. Damn it.
Trademark.
That's not yours.
Damn it. I think that someone said to me, because I had this idea for Quench, and it just wouldn't go away. It was like, you know when, who's read Big Magic? Yeah, okay, I can't see anyone, but I'm assuming it's something. But you know, when she talks about when an idea comes and how if you don't tackle it, that it will go to someone else. And so for me, Quench was like that. And so if you've got something like that, just start talking to everyone. Start explaining what it is. Start meeting them, because you know what? You're going to start talking to someone and they're going to say, oh, you should meet my friend so-and-so. And guess what? Go and meet that friend. And then go and meet another friend. And then go and meet the other friend. And keep it going. I mean, I'm going to bring it a little bit back to the mentor thing for me, because we were talking about mentors at Quench the other day. And I'm very, very lucky at Quench. We have a space full of so many amazing people. Like, you know, we've got Fatso, Jill from Fatso Peanut Butter. We've got Linda from Joni. We've got UVic students that are amazing, making the most crazy stuff. We've got Bitcoin people, and it's a very engaging place. So we were talking about mentorship, and someone said, you know, I think mentorship is a bit of a male term, because women do that anyway. Like, women already talk to each other, raise people up, like how can I help, what can I do? And I think that for me, that's where I think business is coming to, and I think that that's the power of what women are going to bring to the business world, is we're about collaboration. We're not about power and lording over people. We are about making money, absolutely, because that's what you have to do to make a business, but we're about how can we engage everybody, or how can I raise them up, because that will in turn raise me up. And so that's what I'd say. Get out there, talk to people, raise people up. Just do it.
Just do it. Too bad that's taken, because that could have been the brilliant nugget. Everybody, you know, she said just do it, and I'm going to. But it's true, we let fear stand in the way, and we don't want to say it out loud because we might fail, and that's what's our biggest barrier most of the time. Chloe, how about you? What is your advice? I mean, shifting gears from fashion to robotics, my gosh. But what is your advice to somebody who has that idea and is scared and doesn't think they can do it?
Well, that's exactly it, Fiona. Be brave. Be very, very brave. And, you know, as you were saying, buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy ride. But it's worth it. It's wonderful. Yeah, you just got to go for it, and you will find success there. Yeah.
And I wanted to say, I think Krista said it at the beginning too, like, and be yourself. Because, yeah, if you have to be somebody else and start a business, oh my gosh, that just sounds like a recipe for disaster. So.
It does. And Krista, same question, but for anyone out there who aspires to be in a leadership role like CEO, I mean, a lot of people don't try and get there because women don't think that they can. What is your advice if that is your dream?
You know, one of my daughters, I have two of my daughters here tonight. My eldest daughter, Krista Thompson, is an entrepreneur and very successfully runs her own business with employees while she's raising a family. And one of the things about being a leader in an organization is you don't necessarily have anybody who is the boss of you. And so when there's nobody that's truly the boss of you, that means you can actually create the day that you need to create in order to support your family. And we become masters at blending and balancing a family life with a business, and often, you know, they merge. But I would say that if you're aspiring to have a really full life, putting yourself in a position of a CEO helps you really drive the ship, and you're not beholden to a client agenda or not beholden to your boss's agenda. You are holding and running an organization and making that successful, but you also get the chance to to design a life that will support what it is you want to do. But I probably shouldn't have said that out loud, because now my board chair will wonder what the hell I'm doing. But you know, I think
loved your expression on your face when you said you can be your own boss. That is a good feeling, right?
There's a lot to that. There really is.
Okay, let's pivot back to the pandemic just for a moment, because I know a lot of businesses had, I mean, there is so much that we just never could have imagined. And Deanne, you touched on it a little bit, but Tessa, for you, having a location that people come to, how did you power through and keep going and not give up? Because like we were joking, it was pivot, 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 but you're trying to run a business, and the plan is out the window every single day. How did you power through and keep KWENCH going and alive?
I mean, so we opened up our 25,000 square foot location 5 months before the pandemic hit. And our rent period kicked in April. So it was really tough. And there was I'm sure there's a lot of businesses in here that had the same, that the government funding didn't really help businesses that had kind of just opened. Yeah. And so they were like, oh, well, this is your revenue. This is what you were earning in January. And so for the whole year, we had to be like, well, wait on, but we were only at 30% capacity there, so you're not giving us any subsidies at all, even though, so that was really tough, I think. And I mean, it was whatever, you just got to get through it, I mean, we were really lucky. We had members that didn't want us to go anywhere. We also had done well in the first 5 months, so we had a little bit of buffer. But our main revenues was events and office space. So it was like, okay, no events and everyone work from home. Like, okay. So yeah, it was pretty an interesting time. But I don't know about you, Deanne, but I'm kind of like, it feels like April, for anyone else that I don't know, April, it feels like, oh, are we back to normal? Like, it's kind of like, yeah, doesn't it feel like that? But I'm still going, are we?
I know.
Are we? I don't know.
If anybody says the word variant, I'm just gonna duck and cover.
Well, and I'm just like so sick of getting those bloody emails from work. What is it? It's like, okay, now you have to have a barrier between you and the person beside you, a plexi thing, and then, oh, next week, no, you don't.
And they're not cheap. I think the plastics industry did really well.
That money. So I think it was in like January or February, someone came up and said, okay, so down in a cafe, we're supposed to have everyone seated this far apart, we've got to get some more plexiglass. And I was like, I don't care. I don't care if they want to come in here and tell me, then they can pay for it. I'm not paying for any more of that. Like, yeah. So I think there's like a bit of tension about, is it going to keep going or?
That's just all knock on some wood, hey? Yeah. It's not going to happen again. Not twice in a lifetime. Once is enough. Okay, let's bring it back to money. We touched on that a little bit. And of course, we have entrepreneurs on our panel. I'm sure raising capital and securing financing is it's probably the toughest thing that has to be done. Is it different being a woman? Do you feel like there are different barriers to raising capital? And Chloe, you're nodding, so I'm going to turn to you first on this one.
Yes, absolutely. There is a huge barrier for women, particularly, to raise the type of capital that they need to run their businesses successfully. We touched very briefly on the women's grant that the government put forward a couple of years ago, and I was lucky enough to be a recipient of some of that grant money. But it was a reimbursement program, so I actually had to come up with the money myself before they would reimburse my cost of what that was. And when I went to the bank, similarly, well, what's your income and what's your spouse's income? And I actually received the Women Entrepreneurship Grant, and I had to take my husband to the bank to sign the loan, the credit for me. And it felt really bad. And my husband's really awesome, and he is my partner in our other business, and he's there for me. But I felt like there was something not right about that. And that's just one instance that we touch on. And today, when I am in front of a boardroom full of gentlemen, and I have to thank them for having me there, but I'm trying to raise, tens of millions of dollars now to do what I'm doing, and to be seen, heard, remembered, and taken seriously, and having people sign on the dotted line for that money is incredibly difficult as a woman and as a disabled woman. So that is what I face. And when I talk to people now, I happen to be in a financing round, everyone, in case you're all here. I would love to see way more women around the investment table. I think that they would have more understanding for what I'm trying to get across, the change I'm trying to make. When I say I'm looking for legacy investors in this project, I'm looking for people who see my vision and see the change, the impact it's going to make in the world, and how we're going to do this together. So those are my challenges, but they're not impossible. They're just challenging.
Tessa?
Yeah. I think it's really important to note here too, I don't think the question should be like, do you notice or do you think? It's statistically true. It's not even it's not debatable. It happens. We know it's going on. Women do only get 2% of in angel investment and VC money, yet women founders actually give a higher return to their investors, statistically so far. And I think the other thing is, just forgetting, what did you say? You said something else.
Just do it.
It was really good too.
Yeah. I just think it's really important. Having female investors is fantastic, but also recognizing, and I try to do this with myself all the time, is my own biases, because there's also studies that show that female investors are actually harder on women founders. And so it's like always checking in about what that looks like. And so how, I mean, I know I do it. We just hired a male for one of our roles, and we gave him the highest pay of our bracket or whatever. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I didn't do that to any of the women I employed, any of them. And I'm a feminist. Like, I should be doing this, but I didn't. I was like, well, let's give them this, and then they can work up to that. But the man, I was told, no, he won't come in unless you pay him that. So it's like recognizing how we all add to the system.
Okay, believe it or not, I think we're at time, but we have one more question. And then we're going to open the floor, by the way, so that you can ask questions if you have any for the panel. But my last question is going to be, and we'll go down the line here, starting with you, Deanne. What would you consider your biggest win or your biggest achievement thus far?
Ooh, tough one. Really tough to pick something. I had a fault when I was at Lululemon, and it was I would walk into any room and actually compete with every single person in that room. And I did learn, and that worked for me for a long time. And I did learn at a certain point that, what got me to where I was now wasn't going to get me to where I was going. So I chose to make a change, and instead of competing with everybody in the room, I wanted to inspire people. So that change, I think, got me to my biggest achievement, which is my friends and family. So I wouldn't say I had a lot of friends at that point, because I was competing with them. So who wants to be friends with that person? And I have an awesome community of friends, and I have a great family. So,
and you're inspiring people tonight, so well done. Chloe, same for you. Biggest win or achievement, or both?
Oh yeah, this one's a really easy one for me, because when we shot this video, the video that they put together and showed you all, I said in that video, my future is walking up and standing at a podium and accepting an award. And since that video was shot 2 weeks ago, I think I was had the honor of receiving the Courage to Come Back award. And when I went to Global Studios to shoot that show segment, I took my exoskeleton and I stood and I walked up to that podium and I accepted that award.
Did you hug your husband as well?
Oh, he was bawling away in the corner.
But did you do a good hug with him?
I had a speech to deliver. I was very business.
Tessa, greatest win, biggest achievement.
My greatest memory is walking through what used to be an attic of a 130-year-old building. It's converted into our culture club, and walking past the kitchen, which has an island that fits about 13 people, and there was about 13 people sitting around it, all laughing, all talking, and I was like,
I just got chills.
That's what it's about. Yeah.
Congratulations. Krista.
Yeah, gee, when you're my age, there's a few things on the list, so you have to kind of pick them. But of course, the first thing that comes to mind is what we've been able to do at Covenant House, and I'm very proud of what we've achieved there, and I think this will be a legacy for the entire city. But the bottom line, as I look ahead, what really matters to me, really counts, is my family, and the fact that I've created a family like that for myself, given the family that I saw as a model, is pretty good, and I adore them. Yeah, I have an amazing family.
And Krista, thank you for everything that you've done with Covenant House in the past 17 years, and every kid out there that you have helped. Thank you.